Dance is a tool. For me, art is a tool. Whatever field you're in, to trust your gut, trust your instinct.
You see in that community that you wish this community has, and you're trying to basically teach them or educate them through your art and your dance.
That's really been the consistent theme through all of my work, is I just want people to see one another more clearly. I want them to drop the labels.
Do you think that as a humanity nowadays we are missing kindness?
Every human being has like the capacity for so much beauty and goodness and generosity, and we also have the capacity for destruction.
The main thing we are missing is connection.
Yeah.
To be comfortable, you need to be uncomfortable first before you've been comfortable.
I wasn't able to do the work I'm passionate about, and so it was necessary that I left so that I could pursue the why.
Welcome to Knowledge Seeker. I'm your host, Farhan Mirza. So she spent decades turning empty spaces into living rituals where strangers can weep, laugh, and remember they're alive. Anthropologist turned immersive alchemist Jules Downum is the founder of Understory project, artist, dancer, where she's building a world where brands can stop selling and start meaning something. Tonight, she's exposing us how we all crave for real connection and guide us to finding it. Jules, welcome to Knowledge Seeker.
Thank you for having me.
How are you doing?
I'm great. How are you today?
I'm doing wonderful, recovering from under the weather, but I'm good.
I'm sorry. I'm glad you're recovering though.
Yeah. So tell us about yourself first. And also, I know you're a dancer, you're an artist, you create a lot of things. Mm-hmm. And you created this pop-up project in 2016.
I did, yes.
And so tell us about all that.
Yeah. So as you mentioned, I'm a dancer. I also went to grad school for cultural anthropology. And then I moved back to Chattanooga from California. And I was like, how do I have a career between dance and anthropology in Chattanooga, Tennessee?
Yeah.
And so I really just started thinking about using dance as a storytelling tool and really community stories with ethnographic data, right? If I'm going to get nerdy like an anthropologist. And at the same time, one of my best friends who I grew up with and who I had danced with moved back from New York. And so we just started brainstorming projects, really. And we kept trying to think of a name of an organization. And for like 6 months, we had all these projects we wanted to do, but we couldn't think of a name. And I said, we can't let the name hold us back. Let's just call it Pop-Up Project, because we wanted to do site-specific work. So we wanted to go tell the story of a place or the story of something that happened in a particular place in our community that was meaningful. And that's why it got called the Pop-Up Project. And that started in 2016, really as a production company that was focused on community stories. Mm-hmm. And then, over the course of the 7 or 8 years or so, it really, really grew. The production element grew. We also added an adult studio called Studio 34, which is still functioning. And then a pretty large education program that they serve 600 children a week with free dance education. And I really can't take credit for that because I brought on the director of education and he really built that program. And he is now the executive director of the organization.
Okay. So you started this in 2016 and then in our previous conversation, you talk about that you basically worked 80 hours a week or sometimes, and then how long you basically worked on this project, like from 2016 until?
Yeah, so I worked on the project from 2016 until 2023. And anybody who knows anything about a startup nonprofit, you know that to really build it, you are giving it everything you've got. So it's all of your passion, all of your connections in your network, you're putting your own resources in to lift this thing off the ground. Mm-hmm. And we were really lucky to get some quite a bit of substantial funding to start doing production work in 2020. And we're able to really build out some productions that I'm really proud of that I think we're quite ambitious for Chattanooga. And so, but we were still a startup nonprofit with like really small resources. And so the scale of what we were producing was much larger than the infrastructure we had around us to do it.
Yeah.
And so that just requires the leadership to really, so I was the janitor, I was the artistic director, I was the HR department, and especially after my friend who I mentioned, who was my co-founder, left in 2021, it really started to all fall on me. I was the only grant writer for the organization. And so just to keep it all going, I got into a situation where I was working, 80, 100 hours a week sometimes. My husband is a surgeon and I was working more than him. So he was having to cook and do the childcare and all of that. And it was like, what have I gotten myself into? How have I created this situation? And really, you create it because you're so passionate about it.
Yes.
It's so hard when you're passionate and you see the impact of the work that you're doing and the community it's building around you that is now part of this machine you've created and counting on it, and it's meaningful to them. It's hard to start saying no to that.
Yeah.
And so it just kind of happens a lot for nonprofits.
So at what point you realized that, hey, this is not going anywhere, I need to stop that?
Yeah. Well, I saw there was an issue, especially after my partner left, Maddie, and I went to our funding partners and I expressed that for us to sustain the amount of work that we were doing, which was a large-scale production company, an adult dance studio, a dance company, dance education, that was all happening under one umbrella, that I needed additional staff help. And so they asked me to complete a strategic plan. So we pulled in consultants from New York and spent a year and a half doing a strategic plan. And they suggested we had 2 more staff members just to sustain the work that we were doing. Mm-hmm. And so, my recognition of I can't sustain this came much earlier than my departure. What was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back was after that strategic plan, and I had presented it to funders. One of our major funding two really had to pull out, not for anything that we did, but just for their own strategic initiatives. They had halted grant funding or reduced grant funding for operational support, which is like, when we say operational support, we're talking about people.
Okay.
We're talking about if you want programming to continue, everybody wants their money to go to the programs, but people run the programs, right? And so anyway, they came back and were like, we actually have to reduce a staff member. And so I was either going to have to fire someone and we would lose programming anyway because we were all over capacity, or I was like, well, I could go. And so that's what I chose to do. I chose to leave the organization. At that time, they restructured and cut the production part of things.
So you leave there, and then, of course, you also, I think 2023, you founded Understory.
I did.
So what makes you think that this is going to be different than what you've been through with, the pop-up project?
Right.
And this time is going to be different.
Well, Understory is a business. It's not a nonprofit. And so I am sort of making the commitment to myself that I don't make the project happen because I'm willing to go out and raise all of the funding. But I want to really acknowledge, because I think this is really important, when we talk about quitting, and when we talk about walking away from something that you're passionate about, you don't do it lighthearted. It's not a flippant decision. It's really probably one that has come after trying everything else that you can think of to prevent having to quit. And I that might be a job, it might be a relationship, it might be, a variety of things. You've tried almost everything or everything you can think of, but the situation is so untenable, you have to leave.
Sometimes, actually, I think this quitting thing has a negative connotation to it. But I think sometimes this is the only way you need to basically keep your sanity.
Yeah.
Because sometimes things doesn't. So here's the thing. In business, if you're doing the same thing and it's not working, doing the same thing over and over is just the definition of insanity.
Right.
So I think sometimes quitting is the way to build yourself and grow.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think we do have, and that's why I wanted to like really focus on this for a second, is that we do have a negative connotation around quitting. I mean, they're like, what, quitters never win.
Yeah.
But if you're getting to the point where you're like, I'm trying this, I think there is a sunk cost fallacy where people think, well, I've put so much time in, how can I leave it?
Yeah.
But it's
my baby.
Right, that's my baby. How could I possibly walk away? That'll feel like a failure. But you have to understand that staying is also quitting every other option.
Yeah.
Right? It's like it is a massive leap of faith to quit when you're not jumping into the next thing, which I didn't have the opportunity to do because I didn't know that this was coming my way. I didn't know that like moment of decision was coming. We were in the middle of a production. I thought the staff funding was going to come through and we were going to build. I didn't know we were going to reduce and that I would be the reduction. So, you have to say there has to be something else for me and I'm going to take a leap of faith and I don't know what that is yet. And I want to acknowledge for people that you don't jump into the solution immediately. And so when you say, how do you know Understory is going to be different? Let me be fully honest in saying that I was so eager to have the answer figured out immediately that I was like, it's going to be this and it's going to be this.
Yeah.
And then I actually took a pause and was like, let me actually stop myself, because I realized I was sort of like creating a false sense of urgency to have the answer, right? And to figure out what does success look like. And it was going to look exactly like what I had just done, because that's what I knew. And so I took a pause and took a year off, really, where I only did consulting work. I only worked for other people's projects. I did not try to build this thing. And I retooled and reevaluated. And I'm coming and just now kind of coming out of that with a new focus and plan that feels very clear and very aligned. Whereas when I was first, reeling from this quit, it was just trying to stay busy. That's what I was doing. I was just trying to avoid the stillness of, I don't have 10 meetings today. I don't have to be somewhere 80 hours a week. And now I have to sit with myself and sit with this space.
Empty space
that is so uncomfortable, and how I feel like I don't know what to do with myself. And that is not the place, if you can help it, that is not the place to try to build from. That is the place to sit with your crap and figure out how you build better and how you build in a way that's meant to be most aligned with your purpose now.
Exactly. That's the key word. You just, a couple of times you said the alignment. It has to be alignment. That way, that's how you know this project is gonna thrive. I mean, going back to the quitting thing that you talk about, so when we say yes to something, it means that we are saying no to something else. So when you're saying then, yes, I'm going to keep doing this, but you are saying no to your health, your sanity, your family time, and all that.
Right.
Which, luckily you found out quickly rather than to burn out too much. Sometimes people burn out and they don't have a choice to go back, kind of thing.
Right.
And also with Understory, you took a break, and that gives you some time to basically ponder and rethink that, hey, so what kind of experience you took from the pop-up project that that you don't want to do this with Understory?
I I know that, well, there's so many things. I think it is so important to build strategically, meaning that I was so passionate that, and I don't regret it. I was so passionate in my youth that I would just make things happen. I'm like, we don't have the resources, I'll do it. We don't have this, I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And it was important to do that. But now I'm like, okay, I'm older. Now the projects that are right for me have resources attached to them so that I'm not the one having to do every single thing. And I'm not the janitor, the HR person, the grant writer, and so you build strategically with partnerships.
Yes.
And that is a huge, huge part of it to me. I've also learned that to be very strategic in the way that I discuss the benefits of the arts with business, and would not have had that language or those experiences had I not done the work with Pop-Up Project. Because essentially, the last major productions we did were commissions, and they were marketing projects from developers who saw the benefit of having arts and activations come into their space for economic development, to get eyes on their building, to get organic social media content as people were like, look at this amazing thing that's happening in this cool building that's vacant right now.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I love the arts for art's sake, but I think that artists have to really start understanding their relationship to business and speaking to that directly so that it can be beneficial to the business community. Right. And then in that way, then the resources to do quality work are coming without you killing yourself. Mm-hmm. So that is one major thing that I've learned. And I've learned that if it's not for me, I can pass on that. And there's other things coming.
So I think, you said when you were in your youth, I mean, you're still young, but the wisdom comes, I think, with your age kind of thing. Now you also been through all that. You have that experience. So talk about failure. A lot of people, I don't want to fail, something like that. And I usually say there is no such thing failure in life. You learn something or you become something. Mm-hmm. You learn from that the pop-up project that you don't want to do in your Understory kind of project. And also you said, you were like, I'm going to make things happen. There's a very famous quote from George Bernard Shaw. He said, there's two types of people in this world. There are those who make things happen, and there are those who don't know what happened.
I agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, go ahead.
I was going to say, I agree with that in a way. I think it is so important to move with discipline.
Yes.
Right. But now I'm in a place where I'm looking for alignment more than I was in the past. Yeah. In the past, I was like such a bulldog that I was like, if you told me it couldn't happen, I would be like, I'll show you.
Yeah.
That will.
Yeah.
And I did. And now I'm like, it will happen, but the right things will happen.
Yes.
And those were the right things for me in my past. But, I think that at this time in my life, I am balancing a family. I am... I don't want to burn out again. I don't want to get in that same point where I need to drop everything for a year. And so it's like, it's just that wisdom of yes, things will come. Yes, things will happen, but you don't sacrifice yourself for the cost of it.
I mean, you don't want to lose your sanity. I mean, in all the process kind of thing.
Yeah.
And also you mentioned, which, I learned about you, that you use a word we a lot when you were doing all those kind of a projects. Mm-hmm. And then finally you realized that I'm going to use the word I now. So what makes you...
That's such a good question and very insightful. I think there are a few reasons for that. I think... for one, it was a co-founded organization. So there was a we, right?
Yeah.
And it was a collaborative organization. And all productions are collaborative, really. There's usually a lot of people, especially if you're talking about the performing arts. Yeah. There's dozens of artists involved. And so it was sort of an ethical choice to acknowledge. I notice I still have a hard time with the I. because I recognize that everything I've done has been a collaboration. And so I do want to acknowledge that other people have been part of my life and success. But I also think that when I was younger, I didn't trust my own voice as much as an artist. And so I felt more comfortable in the we language because I was like, well, if I don't trust my taste, but if you think it's good, then it must be good. And I think that just comes with maturity as a creative for in whatever field you're in, to trust your gut, trust your instinct, and you get more comfortable in that.
So let me actually ask you, what was the reasoning that you were not trusting yourself? There's something behind something.
I think especially when it comes to creative work where you're not taught, okay, I'm going to use my husband for an example. Not that doctors are not creative, but you're given a path, right? And you're like,
it's a line.
Yeah, you do this, you do this, you do this, you do this, and you will succeed. For creative careers, you don't have that. You don't have that laid out in front of you. So you're like looking for the
validations.
You're looking for the validation and you're looking for the information that this is the right path that I'm going on. And it's often just about what you like or what you don't like. And sometimes people can make you feel really silly for that, about like, ask any child who said, I want to be a dancer when I grow up. And their parents are like, do not do that. And so, I was like, I want to be a dancer and an anthropologist, both. The whole world tells you that that's silly and that's a mistake. And so I think for me, it was just finding comfort in my choices by the people around me who felt excited about them.
Yeah.
And it's like, that is helpful, I think, when you're first starting out as a young creative, but I think you have to really align with what do I like, why, and trust it. And go with it. And you'll make mistakes and you'll look back on things and be like, oh, that's terrible.
That's what you learn.
But it's a journey.
It's a journey. Like you said, it's exactly a journey. So now, with your anthropology and dancing, anthropology basically create communities, build communities. With your dancing and your creative work, what kind of a story you are telling to the community now?
Mm-hmm. So I am really, really interested right now. Well, I have two kinds of work. One is very much about partnering with businesses for economic development and marketing and helping with marketing and activation to bring density, to bring attention to their programs, projects, whatever. Then I have the work that is still my passion, and I'm really, really interested in stories of moral beauty. And so moral beauty is a term in social psychology, and it is about the goodness in people, and it's cross-cultural, right? So across cultures, we respond when we see someone who is generous, who is kind, who's patient, who sacrifices for the greater good, who has incredible talent. And there's been this massive study of awe, and they looked at like 30,000 or something surveys across 30 countries. I'm messing up the details, and they found that the number one awe-inducing experience was witnessing the moral beauty of other people. And I, as a person living in this world right now, think that we have to remember each other's common humanity. And the best way to do that is see the goodness in another person, even if we think they're different than us. That is what I'm interested in right now as an anthropologist artist, is investigating stories of moral beauty in different groups who see each other as outsiders, others, and sharing them. And so that there can be this softening of those boundaries of us and them, and a recognition of shared humanity, a broadening of our identity, of our community, so that we begin to see this commonality in each other.
So you said you businesses, and I think you work in hospitals and real estate, these kind of things too?
I have, yeah. I have done projects for, in collaboration with Memorial Hospital. Specifically, they have an arts and health program that is amazing. Shia LaRoe, shout out to her. I've worked with real estate development. Sorry. I do. I've worked in museums. And so it's like, the arts can have fingers in a lot of different places that people don't typically think of as being art spaces.
So you said you moved from California, correct?
Yes.
So the community over there, are you doing the same work, correct?
No, I was in graduate school.
Oh, so you're just actually studying there?
I was in a dance company and I was in graduate school. So I was getting my master's in cultural anthropology at that time. Yeah.
So when you moved to Chattanooga, what year you moved to Chattanooga?
We moved here in 2013.
2013. So what's the difference you see in the community in California? I mean, I know there's totally a different, demographic and all that kind of a thing. But there's something that you see in that community that you wish this community has, and you're trying to basically teach them or educate them through your art and your dance.
I don't know if it's accurate to say there's something I saw there that I'm trying to teach here.
Not to teach, but, trying to maybe educate them something through your art.
Yeah. Well, I was in graduate school, as I said, in San Diego. And for my thesis research, I taught dance at a homeless shelter for 2 years.
Ah, see?
Right. And so, when I first went to grad school, I was very naive and I was like, I'm going to go to India and learn dances there. And I just thought anthropology was about going somewhere else and studying a culture that wasn't yours. Okay, that is a very old idea of anthropology. That is really not accurate today at all.
Yeah.
It's very silly and it's very naive. But that is where I was. I was young. I didn't know any better. And I just wanted to go immerse myself in dance somewhere else in a culture that wasn't mine. And then I learned about, the nuances of culture, the nuances of otherness, the fact that the whole, we live in a global society. There is no, anyway, I can't really get into all that without getting really nerdy. But basically that you don't have to travel to get to see people who are othered within your community. And if there is a group that is ostracized, is homeless people, right?
Yeah.
And so I was like, I'm going to take dance to them. And I taught there for 2 years. And really, my thesis was not about dance. My thesis was dance was a lens, right? It was a way for me to build relationships where they saw me every week. They learned to trust me. I showed up every week. People would often show up once and never come back. And it was a way for me a lens through which I could understand their experience a little bit better. Because one of the biggest things I found was that dance became this symbol of normalcy for them, where they would, we'd be in the middle of a lesson and they'd start calling people and be like, I'm in dance class. And because the stigma of homelessness is so strong and it is so visual. There's an image, everybody comes to mind when you say a homeless person, and they were trying their best to distance themselves from that stereotype as much as possible, and dance was a symbol for that. And so it wasn't about dance. It was about how is dance a tool? And so
yes.
Dance is a tool. For me, art is a tool to connect people. It's not an end in of itself. And so that is what I wanted to do here. I wanted to, and that's really been the consistent theme through all of my work, is I just want people to see one another more clearly. I want them to drop the labels that we've attached and just see the human being in front of you. And I think that art, because words can be divisive, and political, but when art is in front of you, it sort of dismantles those things and it can challenge people to see in new ways. And that's the connection for me.
So going back to teaching homeless people, what's the biggest lesson you learned from that experience?
Well, I think just, I had to confront my own stereotypes. I had to confront my own fears or expectations of what this would be like. And I just really got to know, it was at a women's shelter, and I got to really know the women in front of me. I got to know their stories. There's so many misconceptions about homelessness. There's so many stories about, there was always a reason why it happened. And it was like,
yes.
Wow. And people would be like, well, people choose to be homeless. There wasn't one woman I talked to that chose.
I don't think that anybody chose to be homeless.
It was a lot. There was medical debt, for some. There was abusive relationships for some. There was, there's always a reason. And I think that we are closer to that than we ever want to admit. Many of us. Mm-hmm. I know in our last conversation, we talked about how so many Americans have like very little in savings. Yes. It takes one tragedy, one unexpected thing for a lot of people, and the safety net is gone. And so it's like compassion. I learned compassion. I learned, to not be so like proud of anything I had done. It's just seeing the people in front of you.
You can be proud what you have done, but it doesn't mean that you basically disown or disregard other people problems or their success kind of thing. Do you think that as a humanity nowadays we are missing kindness to each other?
I think we're missing empathy.
Empathy, okay.
I think we're missing empathy. And I think we're missing connection. I think that we are in the middle of a loneliness epidemic. I think we are also we have these tools of connection, social media and our phones, which actually are making us more separated than ever. Mm-hmm. We are receiving messages all the time meant to enrage us at other groups. And I think that we are not connecting to the things that bring out the best parts of ourselves. I think every human being has like the capacity for so much beauty and goodness and generosity, and we also have the capacity for destruction. And we have that angel and that little devil. Yeah. And there's so many things in our lives right now that are feeding the devil and feeding the monster. And we have to get back to the things that feed our better angels, and that allow us to see each other as human beings who are, most of us are all trying. We all want good in the world. We all want to be our best versions of ourselves, and we have to figure out how to continue to connect there.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. We are actually the main thing we are missing is connection.
Yeah.
And so with your art and your dance, and I'm pretty sure that you're trying to connect people through your art. Mm-hmm. What's the struggles you see in people when they come to you as learning about dance and art, and they say, well, this is the struggle we are going through, but I want to use the connection like a dance as a connection to connect those dots to each other. Do you know what I'm saying?
Can you try again?
So let's say, people, you talk about you teach actually in the homeless shelter and all that kind of people. A lot of people are missing connections, and some people trying to connect through dance, through art, that kind of a thing. And what's the struggle you see that they are hesitant to do that?
Well, it depends. I think people struggle in a lot of ways to connect through art because, for example, we started an adult dance studio as a hub for community connection because it's a place where people who've never danced before or who haven't danced in a long time are welcomed. And we want them to come every week. And it's it's really about building a community and building relationships. The barrier there is your own discomfort with being a beginner, because people feel awkward doing something as an adult they've never done before. But if you keep doing the same things, you're going to keep getting the same results. So if you're lonely and you don't feel connected to your community and you're looking for new ways to connect, you might have to put yourself in a little bit of discomfort. And I think that is one of the biggest things to connection right now is it's uncomfortable. You have to put yourself out there a little bit. You have to put yourself in a new situation. You might face a little bit of rejection when you're trying to build new relationships. And it's scary and it's hard, and it's easier to sit at home and put the TV on and scroll your phone. I mean, I'm guilty of it too. So I'm like,
I think everybody has a guilty of that. And
it's hard. It's hard, and you have to make an effort. And I saw this, the other thing I would say recently is I saw a thing that said the price of community is inconvenience.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, oh, that is so true, because I'm like, even my friend, was like, come over for dinner. It's a Wednesday night. I'm like, ugh, I'm exhausted. I want to go in bed. But the price of community is inconvenience. So I'm going to get up and get dressed and go and show up.
Yeah. I think in order to be comfortable, you need to be uncomfortable first before you've been comfortable.
Yep.
And I think, like you said, sometimes you have to do things that you don't feel like doing, but you need to do it for a purpose. So let's talk about your Understory, where you see that project next 5 years, where you want to see that project.
So in the next 5 years, I'd really like to strengthen relationships between the artistic community and the business community so that there's mutual benefits. I would like to be doing productions here and also consulting on productions in other communities that really help put artists and artistic work at the service of business and economic development.
So 20 years from now, for a young artist, and what do you want them to feel when they hear your name?
Well, I kind of have two dual passions when it comes to the arts, and we've touched on both of them a little bit, but I want to just name them specifically because it might make more sense as I say this. I have a passion for creating opportunities for artists. Broken legs are loud. You rise up like a sculpture. That are fair wage, that pay fairly, fair and living wages, and that build the arts economy, because I think everybody benefits when there is a vibrant creative economy. And we cannot do that until there is a strong relationship between business and the arts are seen as business. And so that is one of my passions, and that is what Understory is about. The other passion is art as a connector and a healer and a community healer. And I am doing that work sort of on my own in my continued research and studies. And so in 20 years, when a young artist comes, I want them to be able to say, she created opportunity for us that pays well, that makes it possible for us to live in this community. She helped pave that way by building these relationships strategically. And she created work as an artist herself. That's the businesswoman. She created work as an artist that foregrounds human connection, that strengthened our community, that dissolved boundaries between us and them, and that has made humanity a little softer and a little kinder and a little more open.
Yeah. I think, that's beautiful. Because I was going to ask you, the next question is, what kind of a legacy you want to leave behind. But I think you kind of answered that as an art. But as a personal, you have two kids?
One kid.
Daughter? How old is she?
She's 14.
14.
Yeah.
Wow. So I usually ask this question, but for my guests too, who have kids. So she's 14. When she turned 30, what kind of a message, if she's listening to this conversation 30 years, when she's 30, what kind of a message you want to give it to her?
I think about her a lot when I'm making every decision, of course. I want her to feel permission to trust her own instincts, follow the path that she believes is right. Even if people are like, you want to be a dancer? Why would you do that? Don't do that. And I would really, 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 and I'm trying really hard to teach her that, like you said, there's no such thing as a failure, really.
Yep.
It might be like, okay, I tried that and it didn't work. And, I think the way that we get to that is we really understand our why. If we know what our why is, it doesn't matter so much what the what is or what the how is.
Yes.
Because it's like there might be many different ways to skin a cat, right? And we're exploring different options. But if we know our why, if a how doesn't work out, it's okay because I'm still going in this direction.
Yes.
And so I really want her to know her why. And then she will trust her instincts and her gut. And failure, quote unquote, failure won't be devastating because it will just be a redirection toward a better path toward her why.
I think listen to your mom, okay? I think there is a very famous quote from Jim Rohn. He said, if your why is strong enough, your how become easier.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if your why is strong, you will figure out.
Exactly. It doesn't matter. And you know that you're on your way toward that. Mm-hmm. And that, even with pop-up. I was like, this is my way. This is my path. And now I recognize all the ways that it wasn't. And all the ways that it actually began to prevent me.
Yeah.
At first it was, right? It was aligned. And then as the organization grew and I was really being pulled away from the work I'm passionate about so that I could be the executive director and take care of the finances, which is not my strength.
Yeah.
I wasn't able to do the work I'm passionate about. And so it was necessary that I left so that I could pursue the why.
Yep, I think that's exactly this alignment with you because you figure out that what is your why is, and that's big thing for most people. They know what they don't want, but they don't know what they really want.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I think that's why we've talked about this a couple times, but I think that's really why you have to get quiet. You have to spend a lot of time thinking, meditating, journaling, whatever your path is, like whatever your, way of practicing that is, you have to spend time with yourself. You have to ask yourself those questions. You have to sit in the discomfort of your liminal space where you don't exactly know what you're doing yet.
Yeah.
Which is why I needed to pause on the understory because you have to get clear on that why, or you're just floundering.
Then you're not gonna go to your how if you don't know
exactly.
What it is.
Or you'll just be distracted by any little thing that comes your way to keep yourself busy.
Yeah.
Instead of really being on your own path and your own purpose.
There's C.S. Lewis. He was an English author. He said, if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there.
Exactly. Exactly. So, and I think that's so true. And I see so many people who are so uncomfortable with not knowing exactly their why that they just will stay busy to prevent themselves from having to sit with that question.
Just busy, not productive. Yeah. So let's talk about, you had a TED Talk.
I did, yeah.
And your message was carry on. So can you talk about what does that mean? Like carry on, like just keep going, or carry on meaning, what was this?
Well, funny story. I was invited to speak and I was like, okay, sure. And I didn't know what the topic was. And because I had spoken on awe, the power of awe and the importance of awe, I assumed that that's what she was asking me to speak on. And then she said, the theme of the conference is carry on. And I had just quit my job.
Oh.
And I was like,
I'm carrying on right now.
I sat with that a full week. Like, can I speak to this? And so my talk is called Carry On, but maybe in a new direction. I did not get a range. I got one thing, and that was quitting or to quit. Yes, right? And I was like, that's really interesting. And I also found it really interesting as I just sat with that I noticed within myself, I had positive associations with carry on and all of its synonyms, and I had negative associations. And it's really what we were talking about earlier, permission to quit, permission to say, I don't care how much time I spent doing this. This is no longer in alignment, or it used to be in alignment, but now it's not for me anymore. Mm-hmm. And giving yourself permission to create the life of your dreams, right? By cutting some things out, even if it's like a painful, and we don't do it lightheartedly. I'm not suggesting we go out and just like quit everything, but that we really take stock of what we are giving our time and attention to, and we make sure it's the right thing. Mm-hmm. And then also knowing that you're going to have some uncomfortable time after you quit something. You're going to flounder a little bit. You're going to misdirect a little bit as you like sit with yourself again and figure out a new thing and start taking those baby steps again. But it's okay. The liminal space is very uncomfortable, but it is the space of transformation.
So when you carry on with your pop-up project to Understory now, what was the scariest time for you at that time that you overcome and then carry on? I think it actually wasn't the quitting that was the scariest. Everybody assumes that was the hardest thing, was just the quitting. That wasn't so hard because I was so exhausted and burned out by the time I got to the moment of quitting. Like we talked about, I had tried everything else, that in a way it was a relief. The hardest was what came after, right? It was the January that I didn't have meetings and nobody was calling me, and I suddenly wasn't needed by anybody, and I didn't know what to do with my day, and I didn't know exactly how to move forward because I wasn't thinking about moving before I got the rug jerked out from under me. I wasn't thinking about how to build a business. I was thinking about building Pop-Up Project. And so it was just all those big unknowns. And also, I did not anticipate so many relationships to change so significantly with a position loss. And that was very hard. As someone whose work is about community and building community, it was realizing how much I had mistaken transactional relationships for friendships. That was really hard. Yes.
Really painful in ways that I didn't know. And so I actually had to go through a whole grieving process that I was not prepared for and that I did not expect, that I was in complete denial about. And that was the hardest part. It was much harder than the decision to quit.
So if someone listening to this conversation and he and she is basically ready to carry on, what kind of a message you will give it to them? Hey, it's okay. You can carry on, like you were talking about. It's a very negative connotation to quitting something, but sometimes you have to make a decision. What kind of a message, or if you want to give some kind of advice, one advice, two advice, what kind of advice would you give it to them?
I would say resist. I would say if you know that you have to quit something, you will know it. You will know that you have to quit. Mm-hmm. It's a privilege to quit. Let me say that, right? It is a privilege to quit. And you might know it's not that you really need to quit something, but you can't because of finances, or you can't because of this. But I would say find a way. If everything in you is saying this is not right for me, you might not be able to quit immediately, but begin to figure out how to get yourself out of that situation if you at all can, because that means it's not meant for you. And again, that is a privileged thing to say, and not everybody is going to have that opportunity. And so I want to acknowledge that if you are in the space where you've quit something, you're already really privileged. So have some gratitude for that. And know it's going to be really hard after you do it. And what most people do is and I did it at first too, so don't feel bad about it, is they try to fill the space with a sense of urgency that you have to have it figured out now and you have to do everything now. If you go there and you give in to that sense of urgency, which is your own discomfort with the space, you're going to make a mistake.
And it's okay if you make a mistake. I think that's how you learn.
Yeah, I think you are not giving yourself the benefit that comes from space. Right.
Oh, yeah.
So sit still for a second. I would say sit still for a second.
Yeah.
And get comfortable with your own why, your direction, your voice, and get clarity and patience. Clarity and patience is your goal.
And I think also probably the compass that you really want to quit is that when you're dragging yourself to the work on Monday. Do you know that there is a research actually, the most heart attacks happens on Monday? Because 74% is the stats, 74% of Americans hate their jobs. Mm-hmm. It's very sad.
It's very sad, yeah.
And they're just dragging themselves because of the economical, point of view, financially, because it's a paycheck kind of thing. But with your advice, I think that's a great way to do it. Just sit, have a space and think.
Yeah.
And you will figure out.
Yeah. And I want to acknowledge, that if you hate your job and you're dragging yourself and you're spending 40 hours a week at this place and then you're going home and you're just scrolling, I think part of the reason you're so burned out is because you don't have an outlet for your passion at all. And it's like, maybe you can't quit that job yet, but is there space in your life to feed yourself creatively, your passion, your thing? And so you can find life and purpose through those things, even if it can't be your job right now. Because again, a creative job, a job that you can afford to walk away from, that's a privilege that not everyone has.
Yeah, you're right. That it is a privilege not everybody has. Again, I go back to my virtual mentor, Jim Rohn. He said, while you're working on your job during the day, work on your dreams during the evening.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. So you can work your job. Nobody's, while even though you are hating your job, but you're still going. But when you come home, that's the time from 5 to 9 or 10, whatever, that you can work on your dreams. Mm-hmm. And then you can basically find your why and your passion, and then you move forward or carry on, as you said. Mm-hmm. There's anything else you like to share with our audience that, help someone with, burnout, quitting, or even being an artist or a dance?
I think I'm still learning and I'm still on my path, but I think that the most important thing is to just remember that we have this one wild and precious life, to quote Mary Oliver. And I think we are meant to follow our creativity. There's Julia Cameron says that God or spirit or universe, whatever word you want to put to it, gave us creativity, passion, and our worship, our job is to exercise it. And I think every human being has something that lights them up and something that makes them feel alive. And that the best thing that you can do is nurture that voice, nurture that practice for yourself and others, because our world needs it. We need it right now. We need everybody being passionate. We need everybody working on things that make them feel alive and connected.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think the key word, I think, for this conversation with you is the connection you're talking about. And I think we are missing that connection a lot.
Yeah.
Especially nowadays with all the social media and everything kind of thing. But with your art and your dancing, I think you can bring the community together and they can, learn a lot of things, not only from dance, but being connected to each other. Mm-hmm. So, I know your time is very short. So, with all that, where people can connect with you where they can find you if they want to connect with you and come to you and learn some dancing and all that kind of a stuff.
Yeah, so Instagram is the best place to find me. Both personally, I'm on there, Jules Downum, and my company, Understory, is on there.
So your website is understory.com?
It's understory-exp for experience.
Okay.
.com.
And your Instagram handle is?
At understory-exp.
Okay. Jules, thank you so much. I mean, I wanted to talk to you more about, but I know your time is short. Maybe we'll bring you back and talk some other stuff. Again, thank you for coming, and thank you for your insight. Thank you for your knowledge. So if this episode made you crave for a real connection, please drop a comment and share this episode with someone who really needs this magic. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next week. Until then, keep seeking.